There's a lot of Tamil cinema movies which were hits when they first came out, were zeitgeist in terms of entertainment during their time period. But over a span of few years, or maybe even a decade, people have kind of glanced over those movies or forgotten them altogether. So I wanted to do a list of some of the forgotten hits of Tamil cinema in the last few decades. And maybe these movies are not forgotten by you, but I feel like in a general sense, a lot of people don't talk about them as much as they should. I wouldn't say Abhiyum Nanam is totally forgotten, but in terms of the careers of Trisha, Prakash Raj, and Radha Mohan, it's a film that kind of is a little bit glanced over at times because this is probably Trisha's first time where she headlined a movie and was the star of a movie and carried it with her performance. And I think it's probably one of her best roles ever. And it's surprising that such a hit movie at the time has kind of washed away in terms of its importance. And I feel like people should talk about it a little more in terms of looking back at Trisha's career and also looking back at Prakash Raj's career, because this is probably one of his best performances as well. This is a perfect example of a film that was a hit when it came out. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people talked about it. The performances are amazing. The music is amazing by Yuven. And it's just a nice, happy-go-lucky movie. And the movie's called Kandanal Mudal. But surprisingly, a lot of people have forgotten about this movie. And I think that you should go watch it again because it is such a nice, lighthearted film. And if you're kind of tired of watching all these action, drowsy kind of like dramas that are coming out in Tamil cinema right now, this is a nice speed breaker and a nice kind of pick-me-up film if you need a happy movie to watch. Now, a lot of you are probably going to be in the comments saying that why are you putting Polladavan as a forgotten hit? But in comparison to the other films that Dhanush and Vetrimaran have done together, Adikalam, Asuran, Vada Chennai, I'd say that Polladavan is probably the one that's been forgotten. I think it's a solid movie. It's a very good debut film from Vetrimaran. I think that is one of the most underrated performances of Dhanush's career. But in retrospect, a lot of people don't really talk about this movie. And I think that, as much love as people give to an Asuran or Vada Chennai or Adikalam, I think that same love should be brought towards a film like Polladavan, which is still entertaining to this day. I know a lot of people in the comments are going to be like, did people forget about Youth? But in comparison to the other films from that time period, I'd say that Youth is a film that kind of has become forgotten. A lot of people talk about Kushi. A lot of people talk about Tulladu Manamun Tullum. A lot of people talk about Sachin, Vasigra, But in comparison to those movies, I'd say Youth is not talked about as much. The music in this movie is great. I love the music. It's still so amazing to listen to this day. I think it's one of Vijay's nicer romantic films. It's a little bit different because he doesn't play this type of character anymore. And it's kind of a nice throwback film and a kind of a movie that I feel like people should revisit because obviously, because he's an action star now, I feel like people should revisit his romantic films and revisit a film like this because right after this movie, he did Thirumalai. And obviously, Thirumalai made him into an action star. So I think that's why, in my opinion, Youth is probably a little bit forgotten in people's eyes. This is one of my personal favorite films, Unnai Nenithu, and I think that a lot of people have forgotten about it because obviously these types of films are never made in Tamil cinema now. Those low-key, very nice family comedy dramas that are just very lighthearted but also very melodramatic. And this film is very melodramatic when you look back at it. But it was a hit when it first came out and the music is nice, the performances are nice. I think that the overall story is a nice story, but in comparison to other Surya movies that came out during that time, I don't think this one's talked about as much. A lot of people talk about Maunam Peside, a lot of people talk about Nanda, a lot of people talk about Friends, Kaka Kaka, but Unnai Nenithu was a nice hit that came out, but has been a little bit forgotten over time. I think the only people that remember this movie are the people that listen to that song Happy New Year whenever it comes on radio. That's the only time I feel people remember this movie. So I feel like you should rewatch it. It's a nice movie, and I think it shouldn't be as forgotten as it is today. And again, this is another film that was a hit during its time. It had a lot of famous people in it, and it was a very, very good movie, but surprisingly, a lot of people don't really remember Ullam Kekume. This is a very good college film. It's one of my favorite college drama/comedies. And it has a star cast. Look, you have Sham, Asin, Pooja, Laila, Arya, and the director was Jiva. He did 12B and Damdum and Unnale Unnale. The music in this movie is great by Harish Jairaj, but for some odd reason, people have sort of kind of glanced over this movie and kind of forgotten it. And I feel like you should revisit it because it's a very, very good movie. When I refer people to Tamil cinema comedies, Goa is one of my go-to films to refer to because it's such a great movie. It's one of the best adult comedies that Tamil cinema has done in the last few years. But for some odd reason, people have forgotten about this movie. This was a hit when it first came out. It is so hilarious. From top to bottom, it is one of the funniest concepts that I've seen in Tamil cinema. It's such a blast. Venkat Prabhu has done great work in his career. And again, right after this movie is when Mangata happened. So obviously Mangata kind of like overshadowed this movie. And, you know, like Chennai 6 Lakh 28 and Saroja were big hits. But Goa was like a hit, but not as big as those other two films. But I feel like, in my personal opinion, after Mangata and after probably Manadu, Goa is his third best film and probably his best comedy. This is such a hilarious movie and you need to rewatch it because, again, for a movie this good, it should not be forgotten as much as it is today. Menam Kotti Paravai is probably one of the most interesting films because it was a hit when it came out. Sivakarthikeyan obviously became more famous with like Edir Neechal and Veruttapada Valibar Sangam. But Menam Kotti Paravai is a very good movie. It's a very pleasant movie. It's a hilarious movie. The comedy scenes in this movie still work for me till this day. And it previewed that kind of dynamic that Sivakarthikeyan had with Suri. And the music in this movie is nice too. And I think it's a pleasant movie. I don't know why people have forgotten it. It's a really good movie. You should rewatch it. If you haven't watched it ever, please watch it because it's a good hit. And I don't know why people have forgotten it. Koil is one of Simbu's best films. I'm surprised that this movie has been forgotten because like it was a solid movie. The music is nice. The story is nice. It's a nice like family drama. But yet, again, I think the reason why it's kind of forgotten is because it came around the time of Manmadan. And obviously Simbu was doing like more like, you know, those kind of roles. And I feel like this was a nice like change of pace for him because he was doing like those brash, like youthful kind of films. And this was a nice like laid back role for him and a nice laid back film for him. And I feel like it's weird that such a hit is forgotten and you should revisit it because again, it's a solid movie. Kadalil Sodupadu Yeppadi. This is one of my favorite romantic comedy dramas of the last 10 years or so. It's a solid movie. Yet again, like I said, a lot of people have forgotten about this movie. They always talk about movies like Raja Rani or they talk about, I don't know, like any other comedy drama that was a romantic comedy drama that came out in the last 10 years. This one is one of the best ones. It is solidly written, solidly directed, lovely chemistry between Siddharth and Amala Paul, great music by Taman, but for some odd reason, after it became a hit, people have forgotten it. Please rewatch it because it's a great movie. Everyone talks about Premam, everyone talked about Tiruchitrambalam in terms of showing a person that had multiple love stories in his life, but Autograph was the blueprint. This was a big hit when it first came out. The Ovaram Pookalame, that song was played everywhere. You couldn't escape that song. Yet, for some odd reason, this movie has become forgotten. It is such a nice movie. It is a very good drama. And it's one of the rare cases that I've seen a director becoming an actor and it actually made sense. And it's such a nice movie. Please do watch it because I don't think it should be as forgotten as it is today. This movie is such a quirky, smart, and very entertaining film. I love Orampo. It was a hit when it first came out. Obviously, Arya has done bigger hits before and after this film, but this was one of his hits where I really liked it and I really thought it was very unique and something that Tamil cinema needs to revisit again because this was the type of, you know, comedy film that really revolutionized the whole idea of like bringing in new concepts into Tamil cinema and such an interesting idea of doing drag racing with cars. Yeah, you need to revisit this film because it's a solid movie. This is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie in Tamil cinema. Peranmai is one of my favorite J.M. Ravi movies, but for some odd reason, people forget about this movie. Obviously, when you do a film like Santosh Subramaniam right before this movie, a lot of people talk about that film and they talk about the films that he's done after. But Peranmai was a solid hit. It was one of my favorite films of 2009. It's a great action thriller and it deserves more love than it gets because this movie should not be forgotten. And one of my all-time favorite romantic comedy dramas, Dum Dum Dum. Everyone talks about Minnale, everyone talks about Ale Payade. Not enough people talk about Dum Dum Dum. Please go watch it because it shouldn't be as forgotten as it is today. And I hope you enjoyed these movies and let me know if I missed any.